advised. The opinions and views of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Okay, welcome to this brand new year with us here on GNN's Talk News TV, Herman Tiu Laurel edition. And let me first babati muna ko sa dalawang taga-Cagayan de Oro na nakilala ko sa Puerto Princesa at sa El Nido during the holiday break. Si Miss Dotoxil and Hingo ng Cagayan de Oro, and we had a long discussion. Kasi napapanood tayo, free TV doon sa Cagayan de Oro, as in many other places like Central Luzon and so on. So look for GNN for these in-depth discussions, especially our episode, Herman Tiu Laurel on Talk News TV. And second important note to make, of course, we express our condolences to our guest whose mother passed away at 94. I cannot memorize the name yet. We'll ask Jimmy later on. And again, before I forget, I'd like to introduce our casting director, si Miss Liza Gaspar over there, who joined us in our previous taping. And people can volunteer to join our discussions, young people, because old people, I have too many friends who are already seniors, and we wanted to have more participation from young people, yuppies especially, and you can go to www.ninjagirl, the Girl Ninja, TheGirlNinja.com, thegirlninja.com, and volunteer. She'll be sending out invitations on the topics that we discuss. Like our guest, we'll start introducing our guest ladies first. Si Miss Tida Pascual, UP philosophy major, who will join us in our discussion of Catholic Philippines socio-economic directions for 2012. Why Catholic Philippines? Because this is a predominantly Catholic society. We're not talking about the Catholic Church alone. We're talking about the Catholic Philippine society. Because we're taking off from the Christmas message of Pope Benedict from the Vatican, which had some prescriptions for the economic systems of the world, and saying that unregulated capitalism has not been protective of the weakest in society. And I found it very ironic, so I thought this would be one of the first subjects for this year, that during the Christmas season here in Manila is the time that we see hordes of raggedly dressed, scrawny little children begging in the streets. Sa gitna ng Pasko, dyan nagdadagsa sa mga lansangan yung mga yagit na mga mahihirap na mga bata, pati sanggol ginagamit sa paglilимos sa panahon ng Pasko. What is wrong with Catholic Philippines? Of course, we have the head, the chair, in fact, of the Kilusan para sa makabansang ekonomiya, a nationalist, patriotic economics, whom we have had over in our discussions here for the past 2 years, Mr. Jimmy Regalario of Kilusan para sa makabansang ekonomiya, to ask his reaction also, and the churches, the laity, the community, possible reaction of the community to the Pope's message on the economic system. Okay, let's Uh, Again, repeat, our subject is Catholic Philippines socio-economic directions in 2012. Of course, the dominant issue this year is going to be the RH law, but we'll go into that later on. Let's go to Tida, who downloaded all these materials about the RH bill, but we will begin with the Pope's message. I borrowed the paper from Tida, but Tida, you might need this to give us an introduction to this message from the Vatican.
Yeah, the highlight of the message is in the second paragraph. No? It says hotbeds of tension and conflict caused by growing instances of inequality between rich and poor, the prevalence of a selfish and individualistic mindset. That is in regards to the unregulated financial capitalism.
Okay.
One point of perspective is that is a comment for me. That is a comment of the church or the Pope in regards to the state or the leaders still ineffectiveness or inefficiency of running the government. So that's one thing, subtle as it is, but if the leader, for example, the president, will take a cue from that and really be sincere and serious to have an effective management of our economic system.
My immediate reaction is, of course, Pope Benedict was not addressing his message to communist China.
No.
It will be to the countries that he feels the Catholic faith has some relevance, such as Europe, the United States, and particularly the Philippines and Latin American countries. Don't you think so?
In a sense, as general as that, it will encompass all those who embrace capitalism as a socio-economic policy. In regards to the abuses or the effects of this.
And isn't it correct to say that it is in the Catholic capitalist countries that we see today the great turmoil between the rich and the poor? In Greece, in Italy, the center of where Vatican is located. You see the riots in Italy, in Spain, which was the country that brought Catholicism to the Philippines. I would think that the Vatican really had in mind these countries. I think that would be fair to conclude.
It appeared to be like that because the freedom is in full force. So there is no monitoring. There is no coordination from supposedly from the government, a guidance, a mentor. So most of the players, the businesses, can really do everything, like to monopolize. So leaving the poor, the weak, the untrained to be as weak and poor.
Well,
as
may tanong dito nga, by Francis Roca. It's a report by Francis Roca from the Catholic News Service, and the title of the report is Capitalism Catholic? A priest defends free market economics, while there are those from the Catholic Church itself critiquing and criticizing the capitalist system from the perspective of the Catholic faith. Let's go to Jimmy Regalari, who heads a movement, a lay movement, but with involvement of some bishops, in a call for changing our Philippine economic direction from one that is, would you say, neo-colonial, import-dependent, export-dependent, and into a self-sufficient nationalist economy. Jimmy, what's your reaction to this?
I think what the Pope is referring to when he uttered such statement is that it is a global trend that the gap between the rich and the poor has widened, and it's widening in every passing year. All because capitalism has been put in place in almost all of the countries all over the world. I've not heard of a socialist country practicing socialism whereby the fruit of production is being shared among the inhabitants. There is always capital and there is always profit and there is always workers or working class. So what the Pope, I think, is referring is that this is the main problem. And following that statement that I think was uttered by several popes before him,
yes.
that the root cause of problem is greed. And when you mention things like greed, it is always synonymous to capitalism because capitalism is synonymous to profit. And profit could only be taken at the expense of those who work for it. So you take the margin while another person worked for it and sweat it out for you to take the profit. So I think that's the main problem, and I believe him on that. Now, there were so many economic growth rate reports that has been reported year after year after year all over the world. But what is not being explained is the economic activities that produce such growth rate. And who is being benefited by the growth rate? Like, for example, in our case here in the Philippines, we have registered 7.1% economic
In the third
growth
quarter.
rate.
In the third quarter.
In the third quarter. But in totality, it will not go down. It will not go below 5%.
Okay.
So, but nobody raised the question as to who have been who are the beneficiaries of such growth rate. Well, now all over the world there is now a mass movement now beginning to, it sparks in Latin and South America and it's beginning to become a prairie fire. And they call it the Movimiento 99. Why? Because all over the world there is a great, there is a common feeling that growth rates that is being registered in capitalist countries, especially those colonies who are under the control of capitalist countries, only 1% are benefited and 99% are being deprived.
Yeah. Well, in fact, there's a Bloomberg item. I cannot open my downloads, but one Bloomberg item reports that in the past year, in 2012, the 50 or 100 richest individuals in the world, and I would assume some Filipino oligarchs are also
they call
included
it
there,
monopoly
have
capitalists.
added around $300 billion again to their wealth over the billions in the past. So, so anyway, that being said, I have to also clarify, capitalism is not simply one type of capitalism. I think, did the Pope mention finance capital?
Yeah, that's what they term.
Because the term finance capital is very specific. Capitalism as small entrepreneurs, medium-scale entrepreneurs are still legitimate capitalists earning profits from their own investments, hard work, care for their business and so on, actual service and a role in the economy. But I think finance capital, the Goldman Sachs, the financiers in the Philippines like Manny Pangilinan, who moves around money and allies one money to the other and so on to buy public utilities like electricity, like Meralco. Then you have Goldman Sachs, I mentioned, you have Barclays Bank.
Yeah.
Now you have the recent scandal, Hong Kong Shanghai Bank being penalized by $1.3 billion for money laundering and so on, and several other international banks. And then you have the City of London, the center of all banking in the world. A 1 square mile section that supersedes the City of London itself, yung wider City of London. Even the Queen of England has to ask permission to enter what is called the City of London. And what did we see in the past year there? All these banks setting the LIBOR rate, London Interbank overnight rate, the basis for all interest rates in the world. It's just manipulated. Pinag-uusapan lang nila. Wala talagang market determination and price discovery or interest rate discovery. Meaning I don't want to complicate it, but it is a very important distinction between ordinary capitalists, really working capitalists, and finance capitalists. Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
I'll elaborate. Parang ganito yan eh. Yung before, it's a commodity and production. There's free competition. Pero nag-narrow down yan when it started to be monopolized and they redivided the world market among themselves with these few monopoly capitalists, as they call them. Ngayon, every year, they accumulate profit. And the profit goes down during those times back to expansion. But the market is expanding slowly, and the commodity production, because of mass production and technological advances, is producing more than the advancement of market or the expansion of market. So, what if there's 1 million cars being produced, there is only around 800,000 people being added as market. So because of that, the profit that used to be going back for the expansion of production cannot go back anymore. So they have to hold them, and it might become inutil, and it might not gain profit anymore. So they'll have to find ways. So way back, and then yung mga speculative investments na sinasabi, yan yung like future commodities, stock market, derivatives, so on and so forth. And now, all of these investments, which we call the bubble, no? The bubble that is expanding continuously as a result of non-expansion in commodity production, is beginning to, we feel that it's beginning to burst, and now I feel that it burst, and it cannot be remedied anymore, because the dollar that is used to be placed in speculative investment doesn't earn anymore, because nothing could be, nowhere could you place it anymore for another income to be garnered from the investment of the dollars.
Okay.
So, nag-burst na yan, so wala na silang pupuntahan. So, ang sabi nga, it is not a crisis of capitalism, but capitalism itself is the crisis.
Let me go back to Tida. Did we get lost along the way from philosophy, because we're now talking about high finance?
Yeah, because that's what the popes mentioned.
Yeah, I think that is a very particular reference to a very particular type of capitalism, finance capital. What's your reaction?
In regards to the statement, unregulated financial capitalism, if we are to start with that, still the power and the control, if to pursue it, is with the government. So something to do with it, so that hopefully to improve and indeed to regulate. They have been doing that with regard to what's happening, the financial crisis. So it's a matter of decisions with the government, per government.
Yes. Okay. Again, I want to cite examples para maunawaan ng audience. No? Anong nangyayari? Anong ginagawa ng finance capital? Alam natin yung controversy kay Bobby Ongpin. How he used DBP money to buy into the MRT and then sold back the MRT to government and so on. But that's finance capital, di ba? Or finance capital operators in action. Ang San Miguel, from a real productive enterprise, it becomes a player in the finance, juggling of finance. Now they buy also into Meralco. Where are all this money coming from? Suddenly you find out Goldman Sachs pala bought into the MRT, and one of the reasons why our fares has to be increased, and so on. We have 5 minutes before the break. Did I get everyone confused enough?
Hindi, ang tingin ko, yun nga eh. Yung investment na kung saan ilalagay yung financial investment. So that's the biggest problem of.
But how do you control it? That's the issue of the Pope. We'll go back to Tida after your reaction.
To control it is something impossible, but it has its own dead end, and I think it reaches it.
Well, Tida said it has to be regulated, and actually in the U.S. it's a very big issue now. The Glass-Steagall Act, which during the time of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he instituted to put the brakes on the collapse of the U.S. financial system during the Great Depression. So there is a clamor now to restore that in the U.S. But even in the Philippines, and with specific reference to the Catholic Church, Catholic philosophy and ideology, the past 30 years saw the demise of the anti-usury practice of the Catholic Church. Ano? And subsequently, the government also repealed the anti-usury law. Anyway, let's get back. We'll go back to that on our second half. On the usury, I think that's very crucial and very central to the question. Tida, you were going to react.
Yes. Basically, it is finance creation, especially for the government, to provide, say, jobs. So it's interconnection
Okay,
of
but
web of...
You say finance creation by the government, but does government in the Philippines create the credit, or is it IMF controlling and limiting or expanding the credit of the Philippines?
Well, that's the relationship.
Yeah. Even the U.S., by the way, it is not the government who controls credit. It is the Federal Reserve, which is actually a private bank. It's a private institution. Are you aware of that?
Not so much.
Yeah, that's important to understand how these bankers and the finance capital cloak all their operations under the legalist or not. It's not even legalist. The impression that these are government operations when they are really private.
No.
Let
what
Tida
I mean,
finish,
yes.
and then I'll get back to Jimmy. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
what I mean with regard to financial collaboration in
Yes.
regards to creation is that of course the government as well is like receiving and creating the funds in itself, and but still the bottom line is that they are in control and they can create policies and that they can regulate, and then
that is
so that's something to
that is your impression. The
Yeah.
government is in control.
no the potentiality in this case.
The potential,
Yes,
okay.
yes. This is already happening.
In other words, if there is political will in the holders of government, then it can be done.
It can be done not as abstract. So we are to go to the concrete.
Okay, we'll go back to
yes.
that. Let's give Jimmy a chance before the break.
Ang simple explanation is there is joblessness, no? There is growth rate, but there is joblessness. Why? Because they're concentrating on investing, on trading. And in the case of the Philippine economy, traders and bankers.
And then just not just trading, but trading in monies also, and stocks and all
but
these
that's
things.
the main direction of the economic policies, because we're meant to be agricultural based, export oriented, and import dependent. And there are some adjustments in the monetary and fiscal policies, of course. But the financial aspect could only be used coming from banks and government banks if it will be used for trading purpose, building up of malls for trading purposes, and the banks will have to absorb all this income and put them as an investment on their part, because they will use the dollars in opening the letter of credit, because we remain to be import dependent. So ganun yung flow. Ano yung financial center which regulate the supposedly flow of capital? The central bank. But the central bank, under its mandate, is an independent entity. Actually, in the three branches of government that is independent from each other ang Philippine government, there is a fourth one, and that is central bank.
Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas.
Yeah, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. After having appointed the governor, the national government is hands off on policies. Why? Because when it comes to interest rate, it is the U.S. Treasury. When it comes to foreign exchange, it is the U.S. Federal Reserve.
Okay, we have to take our break.
Following the IMF World Bank.
We'll get back to this
package,
after this break.